Welcome to Trade Secrets, Remodeling with NARI, the show where we help remodelers build stronger, more professional, and more successful businesses. I'm Anthony Lopez, Director of Business Development at the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. Today, I'm joined by Chris Lalomia, a NARI National Board member, Chair of the Marketing Committee, and owner of the trusted Toolbox. Chris has grown his remodeling business from 0 to 7 figures by focusing on 3 key areas: marketing, operational systems, and building great teams. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to scale a remodeling business, this episode is for you. So Chris, before we dive into the systems that you've built, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Thanks for having me on. I was a corporate guy. I had that job, the one that everybody says, wow, can't believe you're going to leave it. I had the corner office, the Mercedes. I had 400 people working for me. And when I gave my notice, everybody was like, this has got to be a joke. You can't be doing this. I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to start my own business. And if I don't do it now, I won't do it. So I did it. I did that jump and I left from the corporate zoo and out into this wild world of what is now home services. You know, I didn't even know what it was called at the time, but I started out building a handyman and eventually with the business plan to build a remodeling arm as well with it. That was in 2008. And if you recall 2008, that was the big recession. So timing is really not my thing.
Yeah, you talked actually a lot about those corporate years and kind of, you know, the years before you went into the kind of home repair remodeling industry. And for those who kind of want to dive deeper and listen, there's some very funny stories. One involving a lady named Dottie that I thought was hilarious. You also had an interview in there where you mentioned the word parts about 15 times in your interview, probably, you know, within a matter of 2 minutes. So for those who kind of want to dive deeper, episodes 1 and 2 of Small Business Safari by Chris are out there on YouTube. Definitely a good listen. And you did talk a lot about those early years and those corporate years, but I want to talk to you about what led you to leave that comfort. It is so comfortable. You mentioned the Mercedes, the corner office. What led you to leave that comfort and go into home repair, especially around the time that you did it?
Again, common sense probably is not common, and this guy has proven that. I don't mention all of that to tell people I'm bragging. I mention all of that to say I left that zoo where I was being fed. Anybody tells you they want to start their own business and they're in the corporate world, I'll tell you what you miss. You miss every 2 weeks getting a check. You kind of miss that, hey, Monday you probably got the blahs, not feeling too good. Maybe you're not giving 100% to your company. You don't get that opportunity anymore. So why did I do it? I've always wanted to start my own business, even since the time I was 17. I actually had written down on a piece of paper that I just recently lost, but I wrote down a goal because I told my dad I've always wanted to run my own business. He goes, well, hopes and wishes are only granted at Disney. If you want to do something, you better write it down. So like a stubborn 17-year-old, I was working in manufacturing and I said, I want to have a machine shop with 50 employees providing parts to the automotive industry. Now, why so specific? Because I grew up outside of Detroit. So that's all I knew. Fast forward, I also said I wanted to have it done by the time I was 35. So I was 36 at the time, and I realized I hadn't done it. And so I said, that's it. I looked at my wife and said, I'm starting my own business. And she's like, whoa, you better back up, buddy. You better have a plan. You got kids in school. We got a lifestyle that we've all become accustomed to. But so we want to hear I want to see what you're going to do. And so what I did was I built a business plan around something. And this wasn't my first choice, but I did see that there were some cracks in the real estate market at the time. And I felt like handyman would be a recession resistant business. I also knew it wasn't something that could get outsourced. And now look where we are in the advent of AI. This is also something that AI can't supplant either. So I wouldn't say it was smart. I would say that I was fortuitous that it didn't all come together, and it did. I'm an overnight success. It just took 17 years.
When you first started that business, you know, you have the idea and you launch. And I think that first initial step is the biggest step, and that's great. That next 2 years where you are just going through the doldrums, right? Like, do you even think about growth? Like, what does growth even look like? What did you think it would look like for you?
Great question. So I did think about growth. I kept saying, hey, it's going. And so I said a couple things. One, I still look back on that and say, if you ever want to start a business when a recession's happening, you are going to work your tail off and really build a better system. And I think it actually slowed me down enough to help me build those systems to help me scale eventually. So when the market started to come back in about 10, is when you started to see people investing back in their house and doing some work in their homes, and things were getting more stable. People had jobs, because that's what happens. You got to have a job. You got to provide for your family before you can start doing things on your home. That's really the way it works. Mm-hmm. When I saw it started to grow, I kept going back to my business plan. And that's something I did every year. I'd go back, and my business plan was a living document for about the first 7 years of my business. I would tell you today that business plan is in tatters. I'm in a different position, a different place. But just looking at how I was going to grow, and what I kept doing was looking at things like how much revenue I was bringing in. But I didn't have the eye on how much I was actually keeping of that revenue I was bringing in. So I made a lot of mistakes. And that's, people say, hey, Chris, you don't make mistakes. I'm like, but then what am I doing? Well, you're investing in yourself long term. So it's kind of like a tuition. I just paid for a really expensive tuition for those first 4 years, because if I could do it all over again, I would have done a lot of things differently, which is why I started the podcast, which is why I wrote a book called From the Zoo to the Wild, talking about my journey. And hopefully you pick up a few things that I did wrong that you'll do better. And some things I think I did well, some things I think I didn't do well. The eye towards growth is hard. Even after 18 years, Anthony, I'm a little stagnant. The remodeling world the last couple of years here in 24 and 25 weren't as robust as I thought they were going to be, a lot of us thought, across all of NARI. And it's been kind of difficult to continue and have that eye towards, can I continue to grow? What's stopping me? And it's still tough, even to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, a couple different things in there, or a couple different aspects that you kind of look back on, and you've probably tweaked so many times and changed along the way. What do you think surprised you the most? Like, you start the business, you kind of get it going. We talked a little bit about kind of the difference between corporate life and then owning your own business, and kind of some of the things that you lose out on when you do start your own business. And I would say, lack of sleep, that, that's probably up there, number one, right? What do you think kind of surprised you the most in those kind of initial stages?
Probably the biggest surprise, and I look back on it, and I had somebody tell me this, but until you actually have to do it, you don't know it. And it was this. In 18 years, I've never missed payroll. Everybody has always been paid. I've always made it. But a year into it, I was getting ready for payroll. I had a big check sitting out there from a customer that hadn't paid me yet because they were out of town. And she said, no big deal. You don't have to. I said, well, I happen to be in the neighborhood. I'll just stop by and get it. That was on a Thursday night. And I was nowhere near her house. And I drove all the way up there, sat there while she wrote the check, rolled out of her house in a very long subdivision that was a gated HOA community, which had security patrolling, said you can't go over 20 miles an hour. Needless to say, I can't tell you how fast I was going. Let's just say I was going a little over 20. And I hustled my butt over to the bank at 4:30 as they were closing the doors, and I deposited the check so I could make payroll. And it hit me right there, is that, you know what? He said, you're not really an entrepreneur until you got to hustle and make payroll. And that's what it feels like. That you can call it adrenaline, you can call it fear, you can call it motivation, drive, whatever you want to call it. I had all of it wrapped together, but it was Chris sweating a lot.
I can only imagine. I mean, when you have those other people that are relying on you and looking at you, and you're the final boss, you're the guy. There's no other guy to talk to, right? Like, that leads you to like really correct kind of any of those mistakes or any of those hiccups along the way. Like, you want to nip those in the bud. Anything that you're learning throughout those first couple stages, it almost like becomes like you'll never make that mistake again, because you're like putting that into your processes. And these are one of the reasons that you'll be successful. So mistakes do teach us a lot, and having those, kind of instances where we're just sweating, as much as possible really does teach you, those valuable lessons. What do you think is a mistake, or maybe a couple, that taught you the most?
So that was not probably the time where I did it. I would tell you a couple other things I've done is I poured a lot of effort into coming up with a repetitive process where we can come and do routine maintenance on a scheduled basis with customers. And I have a whole program for it. It's a subscription-based service. It can come in and we can do maintenance on the regular for homeowners. I have developed an incredible program and spent a lot of money and time on it. And I've yet to have a significant growth in it. I at most have always had 12 people on it total. So I spent a lot of time and effort and not really focused on my business. My first foray into expanding my remodeling division, I didn't have the right processes. Then I had the right processes. Then I didn't have the right people. And both of those equal lack of profit.
Yep.
And what I was really missing out in is that while revenue is if they say cash is king, revenue is queen, my profit and loss statement looked pretty bad. And it was hard in the middle of it to really pick back up and look at it and go, wait a minute, this isn't really working. I had to basically reconfigure the entire department.
So like at what point did you realize that your business needed these systems instead of just simply, hey, put my working boots on, I'm just going to work harder, right? I think sometimes people think that I'm going to work harder and that's going to do the job. And they don't have systems in place or processes, but they're just kind of relying on the good old work ethic. When did you kind of realize that? And you're like, hey, I need to start implementing these systems.
It was when I got to a certain size. So in my situation, leaving the corporate world and getting into home services and doing what we're doing in remodeling, I'm not like a lot of the other guys that I have met, where they grew up working on homes, building homes, renovating homes, and then tried to build a company around it. So my fallback, my problem, if you will, wasn't that I was always wanted to be a technician. I'm not the best framer in the world. I'm not the best drywall person in the world. I'm not the best cabinet maker in the world. I was a good leader, a good manager, and I was stuck in that manager role. And as I grew, I threw away a lot of the corporate managing that I had. I remember I said I had 400 people at one time, but at most I had 9 direct reports. Well, I had 9 people in my company, but I wasn't doing things that I had to do, what do I mean? I would come in, in the morning, I'd come there, tell my office manager something, tell my scheduler something, and then I'd go out there and start selling. I'd come back and go, hey, how come you guys didn't do it? They're like, because we have no idea what you just said. We didn't want to tell you. So I realized I had to start communicating, being more thoughtful, starting to develop those processes and systems that I do have in place today that allow me to sit here and talk with you in the middle of a workday while I know my business actually runs better sometimes without me being in it now than it is when I'm in it and doing it now. So for me, the big hurdle was getting over that manager role and starting to step up and start to scale even bigger.
Interesting. That coupled within that, and we talk about this kind of at the top of the episode where kind of the systems that you focused on, marketing, operational systems, and then a team management, right? Making sure that you got the right people in the right place, right? And I do want to start with marketing because I think that is a big bear to tackle within the remodeling industry, and everybody views it so differently and how they want to spend these marketing dollars, and there is a million schools of thought. You've done a couple of things with your own brand that I think help as well. And so I really want to talk to you about the marketing aspect. What marketing investments have you made that really made the biggest difference for you?
Great question. I would tell you, I'm going to start with, I think, some of the biggest mistakes we make in remodeling is that we think our name is so important. Notice I don't call myself Chris Lalomia's Handyman Remodeling Company. That doesn't work. People think, well, my name means so much. Well, you got to get out of your own way. That's an ego thing. You've got to come up with something like that. So the branding is looking at it 2 ways. For me, there is relational advertising and there's transactional advertising. Transactional, that makes the phone ring. And in the beginning, when you only have limited dollars, you can't go out there and put your name and your company all over billboards and go on the radio and go on TV and do all those things that, you're not the sponsor of, you're not going to put your name on top of a stadium, right? Because that's just branding. That's what Coca-Cola does. That's what Philips, UPS, that's what all these big companies do. We can't afford to do that when we first start. So you got to start in the beginning, but you have to have that eye towards transactional. And then when can you start putting some of these other plays in place? And that was the hard part for me. Some of my best learnings have been in 18 years when I first started. Remember these things? They were called phone books. People used to have these big, thick phone books. And they said, Chris, if you're going to start your business, you got to be in the phone book, man. You got to take out a page ad. Well, I didn't do it because in 2008, the phone books were dying. Well, when I first got started in 2008, guess what wasn't around? This company called Google. For a lot of us in our world, we're talking about digital marketing, and we do Google, and we can do pay-per-click and SEO, and we can use all these acronyms we want. And now, right now, here we are in 2026, you're starting to find out that Google isn't. While it's still the big behemoth, there is something coming up and coming online that's another disruptor. And how do you stay ahead of that? You don't. All you can hope to do is hold yourself on the back of the wave. And what is that? Well, that's AI. That's these chat services, chat GPT, Perplexity, Claude, pick your poison, whatever you want to be. Those guys are now referring us to customers. And you walk into a house and they say, well, I had chat GPT ask me who is the best person to remodel my bathroom, and your name came up, so that's why you're here. And you're like, okay. And they believe it. So it wasn't Google pay-per-click. It wasn't this. The other thing I realized also is that in the beginning, when money was scarce, let's face it, I had money, I had a pile of money, I had enough to make myself be able to withstand those first 2 years of being tough. I found out that I had more money, I had more time than I had money. So I invested myself into networking groups. I joined chambers of commerce. I highly recommend that. Again, if you listen to the podcast that's where I met my co-host, Alan. You start to meet people because it is a transaction, but it is a relational transaction. Because you're going to pick a remodeler based on, do I like this guy? Do I like this lady? Do I like their ideas? All right, now let's go see what they can do. So I did a lot of that networking in the beginning. And today with my sales team, I make them do all the networking as I pour my energy into giving back a little bit and being involved in NARI.
Yeah, I love that, because traditionally when people are thinking of marketing, they're thinking about the things that you just kind of said, as far as slap the logo somewhere and just kind of expect the call, right? And it's so much more than that. And right, even within marketing, there's so many different aspects that go into it. You've got branding, you've got advertising, you've got PR, right? These are all completely different things, completely different functions, and you need to attack them differently. But I do think when people have a small business, or they're starting up a small business, especially like within the remodeling industry, they're so focused on that brand, and nobody trusts you yet. You don't have any of these systems built in, or the reputation yet to really kind of focus on that brand and highlight the brand and put it out there so much more. I think that aspect of like getting with your local chamber of commerce, your local BNI group, like getting with these groups, getting yourself out there and networking, not only good for you and for your business, but also good to see what other people are doing that are kind of in the same realm, maybe not in the same industry, but are kind of operating, on a similar size base, or are in that same kind of journey as far as their company starting off that you are. So that's an interesting point.
Foundational stuff. Everybody has to have a website. I wouldn't pour a lot into it anymore. I would focus on your Google business profile and getting images out there. Social media, everybody thinks that's going to be the big kicker. It's not. It's another branding play. So you have to have your digital presence, but you got to think about layering all these things together, and then where do you focus in and focus your efforts in? I tell people all the time is that when I talk to people just starting their business, my first question is, you got a website? Great. But you have to have a Google business profile first and get that thing going, because it takes a lot longer to get set up than you think. Because at least that local presence is starting to be pushed through Gemini and Google as well. So that's one thing. Another thing I tell people all the time is that before you start talking about these other great things, billboards, advertising, you want to be the primary sponsor of your local Major League Baseball team. That's a lot of money, man. When's the last time you touched your existing customer base? When's the last time you sent them a newsletter, just informing them on the trends that are going on, giving them information? People don't want to be sold. They'll buy from you if you're showing them value in your email. So I send out an email now. It goes to about 17,000 people every month. It drives the phone. It drives the inquiries that we have, because you can connect with us electronically. You can do it through chat. You can do it through a form submission. So you got to be touching your existing customer base. Those are the people that chose to work with you. They're going to be your advocates if you did a great job, because you wouldn't be in business if you didn't do a great job. Right.
And those people end up kind of becoming your champions, which is, that's the goal there. So taking a step back from marketing, right? We're talking about systems. We've got, these marketing aspects that are important. We've got operational systems. Let's talk a little bit about operational systems. What do you think is something that you've implemented within your company that has had the biggest impact on growth operationally here?
Number one, training. I completely believe in training. Again, I believe in it so much. And what does training look like? That is not an operational meeting. That is not a production meeting. It is a training meeting. I bring all of my handymen, my remodelers, my office staff together once every other Wednesday. And we just do an hour from 7:30 to 8:30. And the first part of it is about who we are and what we do, our culture, what makes us different. We firmly believe in prioritizing professionalism above all else. We put our customers first. I didn't say the customer's always right, but our customers first. We tell a story because it helps energize the team on understanding who we are and what we do and where we're going. Secondly, we'll talk about the operational processes. You got to get a signature to get started. Basics. You got to get a signature to end the job. Basics. You've got to make sure that the customer understands what you're going to do. Basics. You got to understand after you're done, walk the job with the customer. Are they fully happy? Are they 100% satisfied with your work? Basics. And then we finish the end with something technical. I got to give back to these guys. So we do so many different things here at the Trusted Toolbox. We might train guys on how to hang a door, how to install attic stairs, how to do drywall repairs better, how to do light plumbing, how to do light electrical. What are the basics on that stuff? So we always do that. We do it once a week. Again, if you guys didn't catch this, I got 4 CSRs. Those are ladies answering the phones. They're in there with us. And yet, guess what? We've had DeWalt come in and do a DeWalt tool day. And guess who was out there with us? The ladies. Why? Because they're answering the phones. And when they're answering the phones, they're my first touch superstars. I want them knowing what it's like to actually have the tool in their hand. So when somebody calls, they go, yeah, I get it. Our guys can do that work.
That's a great point. I think the key here is transparency. Sometimes transparency can be used as like a negative word. So let's talk visibility maybe. Giving visibility, it seems like that's important. And you tell me if I'm wrong here. Giving visibility to the entire organization so that everybody knows what everybody is doing. Because at the end of the day, there is one goal. And when everybody is kind of aware of not only the culture, the values, the professionalism that we want to bring, but the quality of work, that seems to be a key factor in a successful organization.
So another word we would use is that's alignment. Clear goals set, aligned setups, and then we go. And so, yes, we have 3 things. I have a mission plaque. I don't have a mission statement. I have a mission plaque. It's easily digested. Will my team be able to tell you that every single word on there if they were asked cold out in the field? Probably not. But will they remember these things? They will. What is that? Number 1, you are set up for success. Whether you're the one answering the phones or you're the one finishing the work or you're the one billing after the job is done if we didn't get collection at the time of completion. Number 2, no matter who you are and what you're doing, you're the face of our company. It's not Chris. I never called this Chris's remodeling company. I called it the Trusted Toolbox. You are the most important person to that person on the phone or in front of them. And then more important than me, because you got to be the face of our company. And lastly, complete everything you do with quality and good things will happen. Think of yourself as an artist and what you're asking yourself to do, and you do it a little bit differently, right? You know, you and I have talked about sports, and, we both like to play golf. How many times you go out there, you just feel like you're hacking. You're not getting through it. But every once in a while, you feel like you really nutted one, you hit one really good, and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling like a professional golfer. I play a little bit better. So that's what I tell these guys. 3 things. You're set up for success, be the face of our company, and complete your job with quality.
Love that. It's easy for them to follow too, right? Who doesn't want to get behind that? All right, Chris, this is the true false segment test. This is the segment where I ask you 4 different statements, and then you say true or false after each statement, and then I'll tell you how you did at the end. Sound good?
All right, let's do it.
All right. First one here. Growth happens through systems, not simply by working harder.
True.
All right. Marketing creates opportunity, but operations determine whether you can sustain it.
True.
Hiring the right people and investing in training creates long-term scalability.
True.
And the last one I got for you here. Successful businesses are built intentionally, one process at a time.
True. Ish.
Perfect. That's 100%. You pass with flying colors. Chris, if a remodeler listening today could make one change this week that would move their business closer to that 7 figures, what would you recommend?
One thing, one easy thing I would tell you to do, get some before and after photos out there. Show people your work. People will look at it. And show off some of the cool stuff that you've done. Because when I went and have met with other remodelers across the country as being part of the board, and I see some of the work that's been done with our remodeling awards and the roadies, and I see the work that they've done, you're like, jaw-dropping. It is so cool. Show off your work, man.
100%. Absolutely. Actually, in episode 3, Ashley Blazing, who works with a lot of remodelers, that's like her number 1 recommendation. So spot on there. And Chris, would you be willing to talk to any of our listeners? I know you've got a podcast, you've got a book out there, but where can our listeners find you?
You bet. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Chris Lalomia. There's only one of me out there. It's a pretty unique last name. But if you can't remember that, you can remember this, chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. You send me an email. I'm willing to give anybody 30 minutes just to pick their brains. In fact, I've had a number of people across the country come to visit us here in Atlanta just to see what we have and how we do it. That door is open as well, so you can do that. Love for you to go out there and get a copy of the book, Amazon. It's there. It's called From the Zoo to the Wild. Listen to our podcast. I think it's a lot of fun. Heck, I think we're kind of funny. But that's us. We'll let you be the judge.
You guys are definitely very funny. I can attest to that as well. And thank you for the generosity as well to our listeners. Chris, I appreciate you sharing your experience and the lessons that you've learned in building your business. If you're looking to grow your remodeling business and connect with professionals committed to raising the standard of our industry, please visit NARI.org to learn more about the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to Trade Secrets, Remodeling with NARI on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to Trade Secrets, Remodeling with NARI. If this episode helped you think differently about growing your business, please share it with another remodeler who could benefit from these insights. And we'll see you on the next episode.